Hello my friends and welcome once again to 7 Real Let's Not Meet Stories from Reddit. Living in a world so vast and filled with so many different types of people can be really challenging at times. And sometimes it can be deadly. Here joining me is Dylan's Fear Files to bring you 7 real Let's Not Meet stories from Reddit users. I'm just gonna get to the point. This happened last night and I'm still freaked out. I'm female and 23 for context. I had to work late yesterday and that meant my pup had to wait much longer in his kennel. So when I got home, I decided to take him on a walk, even though it was pretty dark. I live in the US and the temperature last night was around 35 degrees. I bundled up accordingly, locked up behind me, and headed out. My dog is a 90-pound boxer Rottweiler mix. He looks intimidating, but he's a gentle giant, which makes what happened super creepy. Just to help you get a visual, when you walk down my driveway, you can either go left, which will take you to a busy road after passing 8 or so houses, or you can go to the right, which takes you to a park and a well-known river a mile down. There's also an outlet 15 or so yards to the left before a busy road, and it's basically a community of houses with no thorough road. That's the way I usually take my dog, and that's the way I chose to go last night. There's also one dim streetlight at the start of the outlet road. This is important for later. On each side of that outlet road, there are 2 sections of trees and bushes. It's pretty dense. We started walking down the outlet road. My dog stopped cold. A growl came out of him, and it scared me, honestly. I've never heard him make that type of noise before. It's like it came deep from his belly. He was looking into the trees on our right side. I didn't see anything, and I thought maybe he saw an animal, as there are stray cats from time to time. My dog wouldn't budge, and I felt super scared all of a sudden. It was weird, I can't explain it. And it dawned on me, it would so happen that I left my pocket knife and pepper spray back in the locked house. I had no weapon, except for my dog. All of his hair was standing up on his back, and seeing him like that made me uncomfortable and anxious. It just wasn't his style. I wanted to get back home. I pulled the leash and kinda whispered his name, and he finally broke his stance and started walking. He kept looking behind us and wanting to stop. I don't think I've ever walked so fast in my life. I was about 1 house away from my own and looked back at the outlet road, and just to the left of the streetlight, I saw a man with a black t-shirt on, black jeans, and a black ski mask. I also noticed there was something in his hand. It looked long. Couldn't make out what it was, though. I ran, literally dragging my 90-pound dog behind me because he still kept wanting to stop. Probably choked the poor fella out at some point. Just like in the movies, I ironically fumbled with my house key for a solid 6 seconds before opening it, slamming it, and putting my house on lockdown, blinds and all. It was weird because it was cold out. He must have been freezing. I have no idea what he was doing out like that. Now, our neighborhood has a Facebook-esque website where each house can sign up and post things, like if you have a lost pet or you're selling something, you want to inform anyone on any changes, etc. And I posted on there about the incident, told people to keep a watch out. I also called the police after I got back to my house. Dispatch sent an officer to my house. I talked to the cop and gave her my description of the happening and the man. She said she will personally patrol the area herself for the next week or so. And then she gave me the whole spiel on not walking at night, and to always bring my pepper spray, etc., etc. But I told her not to worry, because I'll never walk alone with my dog at night again. Had me on edge. I would have had no idea that man was even in the vicinity if it wasn't for my pup.
This happened at the beginning of the year, when everything in my city is really quiet and lonely because everyone's on vacation. It was around 4 p.m., and I'd gone to a mall that's near my house to get some waxing done, only to find the place closed because of what I said above. I exited the place and I heard a strange laughter to my left that caught my attention. I turned to see a tall man, nothing particularly strange about him except for the fact that he was completely alone, walking in the opposite direction of where I was going. The man noticed that I'd looked at him, so he changed directions to head in the same direction I was going. I started to get a little nervous, as the man was walking behind me and continued to emit the same weird laughter, always with the same tone, like the same laugh replayed again and again. The streets were completely lonely, so I started walking faster. Suddenly the man got really close behind me and I heard him say, "This is where you're going to die." We were in a sidewalk next to an empty lot that is used nowadays as a parking lot. Now I got really scared and I walked as fast as I could without running. Luckily for me, I ran into a girl that used to work with me in a candy store back in 2014. I said hi to her and immediately told her this weirdo was following me and laughing all by himself. And I turned around to point at him, but by that point the guy had suddenly crossed the street and was quite far away, but still staring at me. He obviously changed his mind about following me after I ran into an acquaintance. He continued to walk along the opposite sidewalk until I lost track of him. I haven't seen him again, even though I walk the same street frequently.
This story did not happen to me, but to a friend of mine. My friend Judy had just turned 18 and was literally in the very first day of her college classes. I'll add that, although she is smart, she's a very trusting and gullible person. There was another student, Sam, sitting next to her, who just so happened to have lost his textbook before the semester ever started. He asked if she could share with him for the day, and she didn't take issue with it. Over the next few days, they continued sharing the textbook during class. She didn't mind. He was very smart, handsome, and seemed to be a charming person. She worked at Starbucks in the mall, and what a coincidence. One day, he showed up there too. For some odd reason, they kept running into each other. After that, they seemed to be together all the time. They'd get together after class to study and have drinks. They continued sharing the textbook during class. So, sometime through the semester, it was found out that Sam wasn't a student of the class, nor was he even enrolled in the university. I'm not sure on the details of how he got caught or how he managed to even get away with it for so long. When she pressed him for information, he admitted that he went to class because he had seen her and followed her. Sam confessed that he did it just to get to know her. This did not raise any red flags for her. As I said, she was naive and gullible, and he seemed quite charming. She was flattered, actually, that he would go through such lengths to get to know her. Judy didn't live on campus. Rather, she lived with her sister and brother-in-law because they were close by the university. They had somewhat strict rules as to who she could have over to their house because they had 2 small children. Sam had started coming over a lot and was starting to make himself a little too much at home. Her brother-in-law did not like this one bit, and when her sister found out about how she and Sam met, she felt uneasy and warned her that this wasn't normal behavior. Nevertheless, they relented as she seemed to be close to Sam. I don't know what triggered it, but one day her brother-in-law had enough and asked why she didn't respect his house rules and invited a complete stranger in who had practically taken over the home. She let out that she had never invited him or even given him her address. He just said he was coming over one day, and then he showed up. That was the final straw. They told her to never see him again and called her parents to get them involved. Her brother-in-law kicked Sam out and threatened him not to come back or to see Judy again with some very choice words. I'm not sure if he ever tried to see her again, but she's met and has been dating new people since then, so I think and hope she's completely out of her life now. So, yeah, I don't care if you lost your book. Let's not meet.
While this may not be the most harrowing or scary story on here, it definitely shook me up and gave me more of a mistrust of strangers. First, I'll give a little background. I'm female, and growing up I lived in a terraced house in a very small town in the north of England. While it wasn't the nicest part of town, drugs were a problem, and for a short while a pedophile lived on my street that once locked 2 young teenage girls in his house, but that's not my story to tell. I generally felt quite safe. My mom was and still is a warrior, so she always drilled stranger danger into me growing up. This happened when I was around 7 or 8. A school friend had come to my house to play on our rollerblades. While we were sat on the pavement outside my house, directly underneath the living room window, strapping up our skates when I noticed a scruffy-looking man walking down my street holding something in his hand. As I said, it wasn't the nicest of areas, so this wasn't necessarily unusual, so I carried on with my skates. As the man reached us, he began to slow, looking right at us. This made me feel a bit uncomfortable, but I just put my head down and carried on. My skates were a nightmare to put on, so many straps. Once he reached about 10 feet from us, he stopped, not saying anything, just staring. I started getting really scared now, trying to catch my friend's eye for help. My friend hadn't noticed him up to this point as she had her back to him. Only when he spoke did I look at his face. I don't remember much about him other than his lips. They were horribly chapped and cracked. I remember that I was surprised that he could speak with such sore-looking lips. He mumbled something about chocolate and held up a crushed-looking Easter egg box. I remember thinking that Easter was ages ago, so it must have been quite old, and moved closer towards us. My friend had now noticed him, and shuffled along the floor to me looking a bit scared herself. I shook my head and said, "No thank you," assuming he'd asked a question. I was a polite child, even when scared. He continued to move closer, still mumbling about giving us chocolate, until he was only a few feet from us, towering over us 2 small children, while we slid backwards trying to keep away. Luckily at this point my dad had seen him through the living room window, and popped his head out and said, "Oi, what are you doing?" The man looked surprised and mumbled, trying to sell chocolate? My dad, who can be intimidating when angry, simply said, "Go away. We don't want any." With that, the man shuffled off, turning his head to stare at us while he did. Safe to say, we didn't play outside on our rollerblades that day, and just stayed indoors. Maybe he was just a druggie trying to sell chocolates for drug money, or maybe not. I'll never know.
So I was about 18 at this time. Living in Canada, I moved out of my house because I wanted to be free, with no rules but my own. So I decided to look for a place to stay that wasn't too expensive. I found some places, went to see them, but they were $1,500 for a basement apartment. Being young with not too much money, I thought maybe I should just stay with my parents. So as me and my friend were walking to the bus talking about it, a random guy came out of nowhere and said he had a room in his basement for rent. I looked at him. It looked pretty normal. So I said I'd check the place out. He gave me the address. My friend the next day gave me a ride there. We looked at it, and it seemed really nice. I thought it must be expensive. I asked Fred, we're gonna call him that, how much to rent. He said $300 a month. I told him I would think about it. So the next week or so, I was wondering why anyone would charge that cheap for rent. But being dumb and young, I said maybe he just needs help, or maybe he's just lonely. I was so wrong, and I regret it till this day. I moved in that weekend, and at first it felt really good. On my own, no one would tell me what to do. Well, the first few weeks I was barely at home, either working, going to the gym, partying, and so on. I came home one night, drunk, and I felt off, like someone was watching me. But I shook it off like, who knows, maybe I was just drunk and imagining things. The next few days I had friends over and I went out to get some smokes for us. When I got back, they were outside waiting. I thought maybe they just really wanted to smoke. They saw me and ran over and said that there's someone laughing in your wall. Thought they were high or something. After they ran out, they said it was Fred. He left. He said to them, "I hope you guys are having fun." And then he smiled very strangely, creepily. Fred then said he would be back very soon. After that incident, they wanted me to move out. But I said, who cares, it's really cheap. We were outside debating. One friend and my best friend Mark went in and broke into his room. He came out after 10 minutes, white as a ghost. He told me that he needed to leave and grab our stuff. I didn't want to, but he literally put all my stuff in his truck and forced me in and would not tell me what he saw. Finally, about 3 weeks later, he told me what happened. He broke into Fred's room and saw holes in the wall at the bed area, where my bed is. He said there were pictures of me sleeping. He said the worst part was his room was empty, and he was living in a crawl space. We called the police, but never heard from them again. I've been living at home since because now I have trust issues with what happened. If you have any questions about it, message me. I'll answer the best I can.
Before I begin, let me apologize preemptively for being a bit sparse on detail. This is not my story. This one was told to me by my aunt one Memorial Day when I was visiting up north for a family reunion. Unfortunately, I didn't find this sub until long after she had told me the story, so I'm unable to ask her about the specifics. However, it's the first story that came to mind when I stumbled across this sub, and after some careful consideration, I think it'll fit here pretty well. Back in the late 90s to very early 2000s, my aunt worked in an office. Pretty ordinary place. Cubicles, water cooler chatter, copy machine jams. The guy in the cubicle next to her, Thomas, however, was anything but ordinary. He was the weird guy at this place. You know the type. The guy everyone kinda feels on edge around. The guy that all his coworkers think has the capacity to go postal one day. The guy no one really wants to spend too much time alone with. Being his cubicle mate, my aunt had to put up with a lot of his oddities. Sometimes he'd peek over the divider and just stare at her. Oftentimes he'd make strange comments about the female co-workers' appearances. One thing that really struck her as odd was oftentimes she'd hear him whimpering, as if he was quietly weeping on the other side. Nothing super threatening, but enough to make her feel a tad ill at ease around him. One day she notices Thomas is gone and his cubicle is cleared out. The water cooler chatter picks up. It is revealed that Thomas had been axed and charged and convicted for making threatening phone calls to a couple of female co-workers, one including a rape threat. Not only that, but the hidden surveillance cameras during the stealthy investigation of these allegations had revealed that the strange whimpering my aunt had heard from Thomas was not from him crying, but from him masturbating in his cubicle. He is subsequently sentenced to 75 days in prison with 3 years parole. My aunt thanks good riddance and moves on with her life. A few years pass by, and my aunt is watching the news one night when something catches her attention. Thomas has apparently been arrested again, this time upon investigation of the murder of a 9-year-old girl in Tahoe. Once proceedings began and media attention was being garnered, she was overwhelmed by an influx of new information about Thomas. It turned out that the bad vibes everyone felt at the office were for good reason. Thomas was one sick guy, much worse than they once thought. Trials had brought to attention that Thomas had been sexually abusing his son TJ since he was 5 or 6 years old. As TJ got older, Thomas got him to bring home young girls for him to molest regularly, including TJ's own girlfriends. Eventually, Thomas had dragged TJ so far into his depravity that this culminated in TJ luring a 9-year-old girl into their apartment, where his father brutally raped and murdered her. TJ even covered for his father when the girl's parents came searching for her as she lay tied up in the back bedroom before going off to dump her lifeless body down an embankment alongside the highway. Tragically, a very bright young girl had to die for him to finally be caught, but Thomas was convicted and furthermore died in prison in 2001. No one will ever have the misfortune of meeting him again.
I posted here a few days ago, and now it's having a snowball effect on me because I've thought of a few other creepy things that have happened to me. Now, this one in particular, I had to ask my mom to help me because I was so young when it happened. I remember only bits and pieces. This happened when I was about the age of maybe 6 to 10 and involves my uncle. Also, I'm adopted. This comes up later, I promise. Okay, this is what I remember. My uncle used to come around for holidays and family gatherings, but then he stopped coming at all once. I remember him being very friendly with me and never did me any harm. If anything, he would pay special attention to me and get me the best gifts. There are only a few occurrences I remember where I overheard him and my mom and dad fighting and my uncle leaving upset. Other than that, he was a good uncle to me. Then when I started high school, I grew curious as to why I no longer saw the uncle that once gave me such amazing gifts. So I asked my mom about it over dinner. I remember that I tried to be casual about it. She tried to lay it on lightly, saying he takes lots of vacations and is busy with work, etc., etc. But I know my mom well, and I especially know when she's keeping something from me. So, I told her that it's okay, that I can handle the truth. My mom had to refresh my memory, so here's her version. Her story was much different than my previous memories of my uncle. My mom said my uncle took me into the bathroom with him when I was 6. It was my birthday. My mom couldn't find me. She walked into the bathroom to my uncle with his pants down and me sitting close to him. She left it at that. My dad kicked him out that day, that moment, and banned him from family gatherings. Ever since then, he would show up unexpectedly, hence the fights. And on holidays, he would sit outside in his car, wait until someone wasn't looking, and quick leave me gifts and notes attached, detailing explicit things. They eventually put a restraining order on him, with enough evidence gathered. When I was 10, on my 10th birthday, my uncle showed up, drunk, gifts in hand. My mom said they hid me in the downstairs bedroom with my older cousin. My dad called the police. They took him away and he was put in jail for violating the restraining order put against him by my parents. And the one thing that chills me is my mom actually showed me a note that he had left for me. It was kept for evidence regarding the restraining order. The note said it basically because I'm a non-blood relative, he sees no harm in his actions, and that he intends to continue our family's bloodline through me. And keep in mind, when he left that specific note for me, my mom said I was 8 years old. 8 years old. I'm much older now and haven't seen my uncle or haven't heard from him since. I know he's out of jail most definitely, and I know that he's alive. My parents would get notified if he passed. I hope he's given up on me. And what creeps me out is that so much time has passed. He might look totally different. And he might not have let this thing with me settle because of him and what my mom told me. I'm really into self-defense, and I'm taking extreme measures when it comes to my safety. So, Uncle, if you're coming to me, I dare you. I'll take you on. A big thank you once again to Dylan's Fear Files for joining me on this list. I really appreciate all the time and effort he's put into our collaboration. His narrating style is great, and you guys can check out his channel and work in the description below. That's all the time I have for today, my friends. I hope you're having a wonderful day or evening. I'm Imori. Now, listen to the spooky tunes.